Our main character, Valhalla. Hi guys! Today I kind of wanted to bring like a top 10 favorite books to my channel, but at the same time I was having a really hard time coming up with just like a solid top 10. So this is going to be my top 10 favorite books of right now, just so you guys kind of get an idea of me and where I am right now as a reader. Lauren over at the Novel Lush actually gave me a great idea to break it down and do a top 10 fantasy and a top 10 contemporary, a top 10, you know, break it down into subgenres, like top 10 indie authors. So those are all videos that I'm gonna plan on doing now, because coming up with a top 10 even of all time was way too hard. So I'm definitely gonna do like a top 10 classic favorite fantasy novels and top 10 sci-fi novels. But for right now, since I'm so new, I wanted to go ahead and do something just so you guys had kind of an idea of me and what I like to read right now. Let's get into it. Absolutely, these are in no particular order. I couldn't even begin to try to do that. And I don't think I ever will be able to be like, and this is number 1. I couldn't try to rank them like that. Impossible. Never gonna happen. But the first book I wanted to bring up is Uprooted by Naomi Novik. Base concept for this book is we follow our main character Agnieszka, who lives in a valley on the edge of the woods. The woods are a force of corruption in the world. They've been around as long as anyone can remember, and even the creatures that live in the woods spread corruption, trying to consume this world that they live in. So in the valley lives a dragon, and the dragon is a man. He's a wizard or a sorcerer who lives in the tower overlooking Agnieszka's valley. His job as the sorcerer is to keep the woods at bay. Pretty much the first line of defense on holding the corruption back. And so every 10 years, the dragon goes down to the village and he selects a girl anywhere from 16 to 18 to come and live with him and to be his servant for the next 10 years. So our main character, Agnieszka, and her best friend, Kasia, both fall into that category, and everyone in the village is ready for the dragon to take Kasia. Essentially, she's perfect. She cooks, she cleans, she's beautiful, very tropey. Agnieszka is she's dirty, she's a tomboy, she likes to play in the mud, she can't cook. What I really love about this book is that it takes that trope of the unbeautiful chosen girl and it turns them on their head. Agnieszka is chosen and then just thrust into this fantasy world fighting the corruption. You could just read that in the synopsis. Like, I love the intense pacing of this book. This book, and it could have been a trilogy. Like, Naomi Novik could have taken this and made it into a trilogy. What's so refreshing about it is that it's not. This is a standalone novel, which, I mean, at chapter 10, you'll be like, that felt like the finale, like that felt like the end, but it just keeps going and it keeps that intense pace throughout the whole novel. It's beautiful and I couldn't recommend it more. So next, I really wanted to include this memoir, which I know memoirs aren't for a lot of people, and I really don't even read that many memoirs, but let's pretend this never happened. A mostly true memoir by Jenny Lawson. It made me laugh. It made me cry. It made me laugh cry. I've never laughed out loud so much at a book, and a nonfiction book at that. If you're easily offended, like if you think the word vagina is gross, and you don't want to hear about anybody else's vagina, you won't like this. Don't pick it up. But if you enjoy sarcasm and just an intensely gritty sense of humor, you will love this. It helps you realize that some of the most mortifying moments in our lives, like the moments we would almost prefer to forget, are the moments that make us who we are. This book is wonderful. And then we have Awakens. And I know I've already talked about this on my channel, so you guys probably knew it was going to show up here. But I love these books. You start the first one and you will not be able to put this series down. So we follow our main character, Valhalla, who is a library apprentice and accidentally forms this irreversible bond with our dark, brooding prince. You expect the trope, like, oh, they're gonna fall in love and blah, 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 and it'll be so sweet. No. He takes her and he throws her off a roof. And he's like, my bad. You got all fucked up from that. You should have saved yourself. It hooked me, and just the whole series is amazing. Alright, and then how could I make this video and not include The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss? Like, you just can't. We follow the story of Quoth, and it's told in his own voice as he recounts his life to a chronicler. The series is set, this is day 1, telling his story to the chronicler. The Wise Man's Fear is day 2, and then eventually The Doors of Stone will be day 3, Patrick Rothfuss. But we don't have that one yet. And then it's a tale of a magically gifted young man who grows to be the most notorious wizard his world has ever seen. To sum it up, I could go on forever about this book, but The Name of the Wind. I also couldn't make this video without including at least one of Brandon Sanderson's books. Brandon Sanderson is a master world builder, and Mistborn, especially if you're new to fantasy, is a great place to start. What can you say, really? I mean, the world building, the unique magic system. In this series, there's what's called allomancy, which is a magic system based on ingesting metals, and different metals give you different powers. And not everyone can use every metal. Just love, loss, despair, hope. This trilogy has it all. So if you're trying to get into fantasy books, Mistborn is definitely where I recommend starting. And then we have Red Rising by Pierce Brown. This book. In Red Rising, we follow Darrow, who is a Red. Then Reds are members of the lowest caste in this collar-coded futuristic society where the golds reign and Reds are at the very bottom. We follow him as he attempts to infiltrate and take down the gold. This book was described as the Hunger Games meets Orson Scott Card's Ender series, and really that's bullshit because it's so much better than either of those series. And if you've ever wanted to try sci-fi and you didn't know a good place to start, this is it. Alright, and then next I had to put the Song of Achilles on this list. I loved this book. I loved it so much. This book will stick with me until the day I die. So it's set in Greece, back in the Age of Heroes, and if you enjoy Greek mythology at all, you're going to love this book. We follow Patroclus, who's an awkward young prince who is exiled to a foreign king's court, where he meets the prince, Achilles. The two boys become fast friends, and then lovers, and then soulmates. The writing style is so beautiful, and it will forever have one of my favorite book quotes, which is, hold on, I'll just read it to you. I could recognize him by touch alone, by smell. I would know him blind by the way his breath came and his feet struck the earth. I would know him in death and at the end of the world. Alright, and then I also had to include Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. I just mentioned this in my November wrap-up, and that's how good it was. I just read this last month, and it made this list. Because when I was thinking about the top 10 favorite books of right now, I could not put it on here. Laini Taylor has such beautiful writing style, and honestly, the blinder you are when you go into this book, the better. If you've read her Daughter of Smoke and Bone series, this blows it out of the water. Like, just read this one. Just do it. And another one of my all-time favorite indie authors, Grace Draven's The Master of Crows. I read this 4 or 5 years ago. I barely remember enough to give you a synopsis, but if you like any of the books that I've mentioned in this video so far, just go and look at the synopsis because it's still stuck with me years later. It's wonderful. In The Master of Crows, we follow our main character, Martise, who is a bound woman. And in this society, in order to bind slaves to their masters, they chip off a piece of your soul. We pretty much follow her. She makes a deal with her masters in exchange for her freedom and the piece of her soul back. She is sent to essentially be a spy on our renegade sorcerer, Sahara. And that's all I'm going to tell you. Anyway, if you think it's something you'll remotely be interested in, please pick it up, because I love supporting indie authors, and she's one of my favorites. And last but not least, I couldn't make this video without including Locke and Jean. Like, ugh. The Lies of Locke, Lamora by Scott Lynch, and the entire Gentleman Bastard series. So this was sold to me as Robin Hood meets Ocean's 11 meets Masters of Disguise. If that alone isn't enough for you to pick this up, then there's something wrong with you, because, ooh, it's so good. Scott Lynch writes the best morally gray characters that you just cannot help falling in love with. That was 10, and that should have been it, but I'm gonna do one more. I already took 2 off that should have been on here, so I've decided to leave this one, even though it's not gonna be for everyone, which is why it didn't make it into the top 10, but I still wanted to include it just because these books, which are the Beautiful Monster series by Jex Lane, these books, they ripped out my heart, they tore it out, they tore it to shreds, and then stomped it into the ground in front of me as I drowned in a sea of my own tears and bathed in eternal sorrow. Again, these books aren't for everyone. If you liked Captive Prince at all, these are for you. Ooh, you need to read these right now because they will destroy you. If you didn't like Captive Prince because you didn't like some of the more risky, we're just gonna say rapey because I can't think of any, don't read these. They will offend you. You will hate them. Oh, but man, how do I even describe these books? They just annihilated me. So the first one is Captive. The second one is Sire. And the third one is Broken. If you like Captive Prince at all, pick these up because you will love them. If you did not like Captive Prince, then don't do it. You won't be able to handle these. I'm not kidding. You won't be able to handle it. It's vampires, succubus, gods. It's just everything. This is it. This is what you've been looking for. All right. So that really is it. I'm gonna leave it there. I know I'm new here, and I know the whole male romance thing is kind of, I don't know, taboo. I don't think it should be taboo. I don't think that at all. So if you don't like that, you should probably not watch. I mean, I read a lot of other stuff, and I love other things just as much, but I really wanted to include that in here. So if that offends you, then bye. But yeah, those are my top 11 favorite books of right now. I think that's what I'm going to call it. This video, maybe? All right, bye guys.